Hello again, this is Hellcry, and this is the 7th video of my series analyzing Y2K, a postmodern RPG. If this is your first time, you should watch the playlist down below, as I'll be making reference to a lot of things I pointed out throughout the series. I'll mention that this covers 1.0, the original release of the game. There's stuff in other versions of the game, but we'll get to those in separate videos.
You don't have to tell me I was a terrible man. I'm already quite aware, yet so glad to find me. Have you out of my hair?
No, we're not doing another lyric analysis this time. Writer Andrew Allinson had mentioned this song being an inspiration for Y2K's plot, and I feel like it's painfully obvious what he means by this.
We spend so much time of our journey learning about all our friends. Why don't we ever ask about you?
Hipster scum. Alex Eggleston? Or is it Eagleston? Well, which came first? The eagle or the egg? He's quite a funny character. To really go over who Alex is, we first need to understand postmodernism. Postmodernism is present in a lot of forms of art and philosophy. The simple way of explaining this is explaining modernism. Not to be confused with contemporary, modernism is a period of art in which things exist for their purpose. Brutalism and, in general, minimalism are results of the modernist mentality and movement. Modernism, you could say, is centered around mass production. It is simplified. Postmodernism looks at this narrative built by modernism and criticizes it. Perhaps the world we interface with is beyond just purpose, but it's about its aesthetics, and especially about the individual experiences we have. This is the root of postmodernism, and as it applies to narratives, we see something interesting. Meta-narratives. Now, I know you've seen the use of the word meta a lot, and you probably have an idea of what I'm saying, but allow me to be pretentious for just a moment and say that you're likely incorrect. A common belief is a meta-narrative is a story that makes reference to the fact that it is a story. This is not a meta-narrative, that is a narrative that is meta. A meta-narrative is something like the hero's journey. This is a narrative about narrative. That's where the meta comes in. Look at it like this. The guy gets the girl, the hero saves the day. These are pretty common narratives we recognize. So where does postmodernism come in? If you have a character that believes in these meta-narratives and acts in service of this meta-narrative, but you show how this narrative has failed them or made them worse, you're in the realm of postmodern narratives. So, with Alex, we see that he's desperate to have a purpose, and he quickly latches on to whatever narrative he can get his hands on. A missing girl? Maybe I can save her. Do you ever wonder why Alex's living room is the set of the classic 90s sitcom Full House? Do you ever wonder why the game is called Y2K? It's not just a cheeky reference to when the game takes place. Do you ever wonder why Alex looks like the average gamer that would walk around PAX in 2016? Do you ever wonder why Frankton is set up like a Pokemon town with a big welcome sign for Alex? Do you ever wonder why Alex keeps receiving prank calls from the phone he uses to explore his mind? It's like one day we're made of cotton and the next we're made of metal. There's something going on and it feels like every video essay I watch about this game is intentionally not getting it. Yes, a funny reference to the Michael Cena sign. There are a few things I'm going to go over today, and here we go. The game doesn't take place in the 90s. Now, wait, before you start typing away making your comment on the keyboard, hear me out. Alex is a person who's trapped in nostalgia. The game takes place in nostalgia for the 90s. A common sentiment among millennials as early as 2013 was being a 90s kid. I know, I grew up around those people. Hey, look, me calling Alex a millennial in the past video wasn't a mistake, it was actually intentional. Millennials factually spend a very short amount of their life in the 90s, and most of it was their childhood. Even the oldest millennial would be 18 at the end of the century. And I shouldn't have to spell it out, but nostalgia is a key theme of Y2K.
Chrono Trigger, Lufia 2, Secret of Mana? Those games are like the holy grail of my youth! I seriously don't think I'd be the person I am today if it wasn't for them.
Dad left us. Mom was never home. Television raised us. No one was there to check out homework.
And this is why Alex's house is the set of Full House. This is something the game shows us and doesn't tell. Well, that is unless you consider the line I just played there. That quite literally tells you that this is intentional and part of the story. So if that's the case, why is the game called Y2K?
Must be Y2K.
What's Y2K?
It's some computer virus or something that's going to destroy modern society at midnight on New Year's.
Not exactly. Computers only count the last 2 digits of a number, so they don't know the difference between 2000 or 1900. This will cause various problems with dates and finances, and will probably cause a big mess. People all over the world are panicking. When 2000 rolls around, all the computers will crash and nuclear bombs will go off or something.
Is this real? Like, is this really going to happen?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because this is probably one of the most overlooked details about the title of the game. Well, maybe not as much as the postmodern thing, but at least a close second. Are you familiar with how the Y2K bug worked? No, it wasn't just some hoax, it was an actual problem. You see, computers held the data in a 2-digit integer. This just saved a lot of space when we were working in file sizes of kilobits. And they purposefully assumed that the year would be 19 blank blank. So when the year 2000 rolled around, it would read as though it was the year 1900. Some people worked really hard to avoid this on critical systems like banking, so nothing major happened. And post hoc, everybody just believed it was a hoax and it was never an issue to begin with, because of how well these people did their jobs. If you look at this bug, at the year 2000, time resets and brings it back to 1900. And if we look at the game, it starts on April 4th. 404. And if you don't know, 404 is a common error code. So you get to the end of the game, you get an error code and get sent back to 1999. But if you look at this scene at the end of the game, the computer screens are blue screening, as if some errors happen. And if you were to continue a New Game Plus file, you've recreated the Y2K bug and continue the cycle which keeps Alex trapped in nostalgia. So, why is the year 2016 pointed out specifically? Well, this was when the game was originally supposed to be released. And on that note, there's a lot of media that only comes out around 2016 that is directly referenced in the game. First off, I want to point out that After Dark didn't get its English release until 2007, which is what the Proto-Woman's quote is loosely from. Following that, we have Two Brothers, which didn't release until 2013. And in this scene here, it's referenced as Chromophore, which was the name of the remake/re-release of the game, which was supposed to come out around the same time as Y2K's launch. So again, sometime around 2016, maybe a bit later. And we have two characters who show up in Vela's Mind Dungeon, which, as I mentioned last time, would be Alex's idea of what Vela's Mind Dungeon is. Here we have Turing from Read Only Memories, which came out in 2015, and Jill Stingray, the bartender from Valhalla, which came out in 2016. As well as this tribute to Iwata in Windtown that mentions his death in 2015 as well. Even leading up to New Year's, we see an advertisement for a game called Ninja Seki DX, which the DX version of the game doesn't come out until 2016 as well. And on top of all of this, at the end of the game, there's this thing that says present day, showing how the narrative that Alex has been telling us is being told to us at a certain point where it has already been recycled. And this would presumably take place around the time the script was written and around the time that the game was originally planned to release, 2016. All of these details point to 2016 as being the year the game takes place. And one more detail really shines a light on this.
There are more Velas here than there are Final Fantasy games.
There are 15 Velas. And right now, in 2023, there are 16 Final Fantasy games. But remember, the game was written in 2015 and released in 2019. Final Fantasy XV's name change was announced in 2013, before the game was written. So it existed before the game was written, so what is it referring to? Well, Final Fantasy XV came out in November 2016, so this is directly telling you that this scene takes place before the release of Final Fantasy XV. And somehow, this is all starting to fall into place, especially with the hipster mindset Alex has, how they always long for a time past. Well, this has been great, and yet we do have a lot more to say about Alex today. So, should we get back to the story? Where were we? That's right. Last time we were taking Alex deeper into his mind dungeon to discover his deepest flaw. Now, I want to point out here that this moment is not even really foreshadowing, but is quite literally telling you something. How did the Essentia seamlessly move from her mind dungeon into Alex's? Well, I guess it's like Alex always said.
Look, I'm going to keep calling you until you remember me. Remember what you used to say. Everything happens for a reason. That reason is nothing happens for any reason.
So we get into this room where we finally see Alex's greatest flaw.
What I'm about to show you is something that lies at the heart of all of yourselves. Please, prepare yourself for a harsh amount of bitter truth. What you are about to see cannot be unseen.
Should I be worried?
No, not if you took to heart what I have taught you.
What do you mean? What have you taught me?
To recognize your flaws and work to correct them. I am about to show you your greatest flaw of all. Deconstruction!
Oh boy. I don't understand. How is this my flaw?
In a way, it is everyone's flaw. Destruction. To be destruction or to be creation, we can only be one in the end.
Now, I don't think the Essentia is right here. Just because she doesn't lie doesn't mean that she can't be wrong. You have to realize that the Essentia is a character within the story. Now, within Alex's story, she exists to confirm a lot of things for him, even if they're not quite the way he would want them to be. But if you were to look at Nalia's perspective of what's happening here, of her exploring her parallel lives and seeing this trend, but not wanting to take accountability and blame herself for her narcissistic habits, or recognize those in her other selves, it's easy to see that instead of it being what is shown here, Alex is self-centered, the universe revolves around him as if he was the sun, Alex in flames, on fire, like the proto-woman. His selfish narcissism is the flaw, and the destruction is a result of it. The Essentia and Alex only see the result and say that they're destined to do this, not realizing what is actually causing the result.
As Sammy, you helped me when no one else wanted to help me. As Vela, you gave me back my music, the only thing I ever expected to love.
Wait! You're saying I'm the asshole that used Vela and...
Shh. Alex, regardless of how much you have harmed me in any of my parallel lives, I am always here for you.
Here again, we find Alex projecting onto a situation. I feel like I mentioned this before, but I want to clarify. Alex is not the musician that inspired Vela. If Vela is a parallel to Sammy, then just like Sammy in the first video, Alex in Vela's reality likely never met her. This is what it means to be parallels, and this is often how multiverse-style narratives use this framing to tell you more details about who the character is exactly. Alex desperately wants to have a relationship with Vela, and I guess if he can't, the next best thing would be that he did in a different reality, and somehow messed it up. And maybe that's why he can't do it now, because he's already messed it up in another reality. Instead of the reality of the situation, which is Vela is just not interested in a man-child who still talks to his stuffed panda. So what becomes important here is what I've already shown, is that Alex is creating a bespoke meta-narrative, one which to himself blames his actions on a higher force, and the Essentia here protects him from realizing this truth. And as he's telling us the story, he's really insistent on this narrative. You can see this in a lot of postmodern works. Killer 7, Bioshock Infinite, Spec Ops: The Line, Metal Gear Solid 2, and Metal Gear Solid 5, just to name a few. This is clearly demonstrated within his mind dungeon as well. Alex descends his mind dungeon. This is a critical point that many fail to recognize, even though it's illustrated painfully clear with the visuals. I think what makes people overlook it is that typically you're gaining levels and getting closer to overcoming God in RPGs, so the specifics of this get overlooked. What does it mean to descend the mind? To simply explain this, if you believe that achieving enlightenment is through ascension, then the opposite would be true with descending, right? To push yourself further into delusion. And we see this exactly with all of the scenes here in the Mind Dungeon.
I see you settled into the Mind Dungeon quite well. Have you met the librarian? Oh, I guess you wouldn't. She's on floor 15. There is a girl who minds the place all by herself. Tell her the crow told you to come read old memories. She will show you the rest.
Here, we are shown a puppet that looks suspiciously a lot like Semi-Pot. A literal, artificial version of her that exists in Alex's mind.
Oh, Crow told you to visit me? Oh, well, it's nice to have the company. Usually, Crow sends people away. That's his job, you know. Outsiders aren't allowed in the Dungeon of the Mind. What? Someone gave you the phone number for the Dungeon of the Mind? I don't know what that means. Have I met you somewhere before? As you may know, in this Dungeon of the Mind, memory is unreliable and uncertain. There are things we can remember and things we cannot remember. You seem to be among the things I cannot. Please forgive me, but I want to have met you before. Of course, what I want doesn't matter. Only what the Dungeon Master wants matters. Okay, I've spoken enough.
Characterized as a librarian, here she says, I want to have met you before, pointing out what we already know. Alex never met Sammy.
It can be overwhelming. Never knowing if you're making the right choice. Afraid to act. Because the paralyzing fear that you've chosen wrong. I chose wrong once. I want to go away. Far away. Just to get out of here. To be on my own. Well, not here. That's how I wound up here. Inside the Dungeon of the Mind. I had a mom. But no dad. Mom got weird when Dad left. Things were fine for a while. But before I knew it, life had changed so much there was little to be happy for. So I cried myself to sleep every night. I screamed every night. I tried running away. Never got very far. And you know what? I got away once. Far away. But I came back. I felt terrible that my mom was left all alone. So I went back. When I got home, things were better for a while. Then they got worse. Screaming, throwing things. Accidentally on purpose, blowing out the pilot light on the stove. So I willed myself to escape. And I got far away.
Some of these details are oddly familiar to Alex's life story. And this also mirrors a post on Onism by Superb Pudding.
Did I make the right choice? No. I'm asking you! Did I make the right choice? Is this better? Did I screw up? I can't ever leave you now! All I can do is stay here and catalog the Dungeon Master's thoughts! Do you realize how many thoughts he has? I need to get out. Can you help me get out? Didn't think so. Of course you can't. You're trapped here too. Just like me.
Forever trapped in his mind, forced to organize his thoughts, a woman who must fit him and him alone, even the fictional version of which struggles to do so, twisted utterly, unable to separate her own identity from his, because she is made only for him, by him. We've been in the deep end of Yiik's story for a while now. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but we've still got further to go. We're going to take these concepts and previous ones to reapply our analysis to the narrative. Layers like this are common in postmodern works, so get cozy as I unravel this next section. We've talked about exploring the depths of Alex's mind, and I feel like we've explored every angle of the mind dungeon.
Alex, I entered the mind dungeon alone, and I wandered and wandered. Soon I stumbled upon a hall of names. Each of these names was etched into a door. Inside each of these doors was a life. My life. For 9 days straight, I experienced what it was like to be my parallel selves. Alex, to experience a parallel life in real time is to become an oxymoron. To be something and not be something. Both at once. I am me, but I am also her or him. I have my memories, but they also don't belong to me. The very act of experiencing a parallel life is mind-shattering. When we are born, we immediately begin developing a series of biases and defenses that help us ground our lives in the reality that we invent for ourselves. In doing so, we lose sight of the temporary nature of life. We forget everything. We lose track of where we came from and only look to the future. Experiencing a parallel life disassembles all physiological constraints that have been built up over the years. We see life for what it is, a three-sided box that only allows us to look forward, not back into our own minds where the true nature of reality exists. Do you know what the funniest part is?
What?
I know what you've come to ask me. And I know that I'll say yes, even though I always turn you down. Do you realize how many times we've had this conversation? It's like clockwork. I have a friend. This friend continuously hurts another friend of ours, and soon he realizes his flaws. He soon asks me to try and save him from self-destruction. Every time I say no, and every time you destroy our reality. Maybe it took for me to realize what not helping a friend can do to that friend, but I'm in. Let's win this thing.
And as we've reached this point in the narrative, Michael is the only one seemingly aware of what's happening. He presses Alex on the meta-narrative that he's adopted and is spinning, and he's been doing this since the beginning.
The needle of the record player has struck. The sound that the world now hears will change the nature of all realities, both yours and mine.
I've had this song stuck in my head. It just won't go away. Did you ever get that? I think they call it an earworm or whatever. But this isn't really the catchy kind of song. This is that old sort of thing. It's pretty good, but some of the lyrics are a bit weird. How do they go again?
Hey! Just calling to see if you figured it out. I would love to just come out and say it, but I think it would scare you to death. And that would ruin everything.
Nope. I haven't figured anything out. Look, if you're just gonna keep calling me and say vague, creepy shit, you should at least tell me your name.
Oh! It's your best childhood friend. Think back to when you met me. We were kids. I think Losing My Religion by R.E.M. had just become a big hit.
Michael had moved to the area when he was 12, 1991. The year Michael Stipe of R.E.M. sang Losing My Religion.
My mom didn't want me listening to it because she was afraid it would turn me into a bad kid or something. I went over to your house and we listened to it on your stereo for hours. My mom came to pick me up from your house, heard the song, and freaked out. How can you not remember that? It was the funniest thing. Yeah, you're right. You probably wouldn't remember that. Look, I'm going to keep calling you until you remember me. Remember what you used to say. Everything happens for a reason. That reason is nothing happens for any reason.
Hey! Alex! Help me! I'm stuck in the mind dungeon! What is happening to me?
Alex has taken Michael's attempts to break from his meta-narrative and twisted them back around into confirming it. And I feel that Alex resents him for this, given this scene in his mind dungeon.
Do you know how to science, boy? Have you even had a proper education? Arithmetic, history, Latin, astronomy? That offensive look of disease shows me that you haven't even graduated primary school. How can you look upon me knowing who I am without a proper education? You do know who I am, don't you?
I am Dr. Aryabhata! I'm the famous mathematician astronomer from the classical age of Indian mathematics and Indian astronomy, the Golden Era! 499 AD. I ask the Dungeon Master for help with this absurd project he's assigned me, and he sends me an even more absurd apprentice!
It's as if he doesn't want me to solve the problem.
This clearly illustrates Michael as a pretentious asshole. This cannot be anything clearer than an example of how Alex perceives Michael. Someone who looks down and belittles him for not understanding something. On March 10th, 1998, the Minneapolis rock band Semisonic would release their single, Closing Time, to the world. A widely successful song, quickly becoming an anthem for end of shifts worldwide. Inherent to the meaning of the song is sort of a narrative loop.
Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end.
The beauty of this line is the way that the singer-songwriter realized what he was touching on. Partway into writing the song, I realized it was also about being born. A new beginning from an ending. So why is this relevant? Well, there's this concept in Y2K referred to as proto. Proto being the Latin word referring to the beginning, the origin of, etc. As we see Michael go proto, this would stand out as odd. I've seen a lot of people act as if it's a goal and an endpoint. That your goal in the Y2K universe is to go proto and ascend to being a better person. Not realizing the reality that going proto is now the new origin point.
Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end.
I think that this would basically be the point where Michael decided, instead of rejecting and ignoring Alex's plea for help, now Michael is trying to help Alex.
He soon asks me to try and save him from self-destruction. Every time I say no, and every time you destroy our reality.
And every one of his parallel souls follows suit, as he's now the new origin point of what it means to be a parallel Michael. And as the story folds in on itself, looping back over, he tries to approach him earlier through the phone.
Look, I'm going to keep calling you until you remember me. Remember what you used to say. Everything happens for a reason. That reason is nothing happens for any reason.
So why can't Alex realize this? Because the refusal to shatter his meta-narrative and accepting the truth is what the whole game is about. And Alex illustrates this with his perception of Michael. Instead of seeing his phone calls as help, he sees them as Michael mocking Alex.
You do know the problem, don't you?
Wow, he sends you down here without even telling you the question. It's his job to ask the questions and our job to answer them!
So another way to explain what I mean is looking at the many Alexes we see that have either gone proto or may have. The proto-woman. Both the obsessive narcissism as well as the innate desire for a woman made for him, which is still narcissism just in a different form, a woman who is illusory and fleeting, reflecting on his desire for mating, twisted with his nostalgia for a book. This corrupted passage that she mentions here illustrates this perfectly, as it perfectly represents what she represents. In Murakami's book, he often has a woman character that the main male character is obsessed with in an unhealthy manner. Here, they act as the answer to their problems, whether they are the problem themselves or the solution. This is how Alex views the women in his life, the fictionalized version that he obsesses over especially. Because then it's not about them having any personal agency, or caring of what they think, or for who they are, but rather it is again the self-obsession, this idea how this person is meant for you. This is important to note because Alex has a habit of not understanding something he may be quoting. For example, the Bruce Lee quote he mentions,
Something funny happened that night when I went to bed. I had a dream again. Yes, it was about the android, but she wasn't trapped inside a moving van. She was free and human. In my dream, I knew her very well. We'd been together for a long time. We weren't old. We didn't get old. I knew inside my heart how well she treated me. I knew, for the first time, she was the only woman I'd ever treated well. Inside my dream world, she entered my dreams. She entered my thoughts. She filled up every part of my mind, even the parts I wanted to hide away. She was like the old Bruce Lee quote, "Be like water." She was my water, rushing into all the cracks. Nothing could be hidden from her, but I didn't mind. She didn't judge. She didn't have a place to judge. She, unlike all other humans, was aware of human flaws. She didn't pretend we didn't think about hatred, violence, jealousy, sex. It was a person. She got that. Now, if only she was too. She is, and always will be, a woman made of plastic.
Is not about what he's describing here. The entire point of the concept that Bruce Lee is referring to is to be loose and reactive, not this idea of a person performing osmosis and becoming your obsession. This is because Alex is not smart, as I mentioned before. He is someone who believes he is smart, but is not. And this is something that is shown to you throughout the narrative. I mean, he even took longer to get his degree in liberal arts, the participation trophy of college degrees.
Hey, so, yeah, look, I gotta go away for a while. I don't know when I'm coming back. Things will be fine. Your mom is a good mom. Look, you know I'm your dad, and I'll always be your dad. So, yeah, don't forget that. Look, things might be tough, but yeah, crap, I'm terrible at this. Sometimes adults realize that they made mistakes, and sometimes their mistakes cost a lot of money and require a lot of food and educations, and some adults, like your mother, are better at providing for those mistakes than fathers. Look, you're lucky that your mom is smart. Smarter than I am. Anyway, sometimes the realization of those mistakes leads you to following other mistakes halfway across the country in hope of finding some dream. A youthful dream with nice legs. Only those legs aren't as smart as your mom's, but man. Anyway, yeah. So, hopefully this doesn't screw you up too badly. You can have all my stuff. I left most of it here. It's like your birthright or whatever. So, my clothes are a bit big, but you'll grow into them, and then you can dress just like your old man. Try not to make the same mistakes I made. Okay?
Alex's dad shows up in phone calls, and Alex's reaction tells you a lot.
Hey, Alex, it's your... No, I already said there was no time for that. Oh, okay, look, kiddo, I gotta go. Say hi to your sister for me.
I couldn't deal with this. I was going to unplug this phone. I winced every time this stupid thing rang.
Hey man, sorry I haven't called lately.
Can't deal with this now.
Oh yeah, sorry. Anyway, she's at the playground. Go get her, Tiger.
In some ways, Alex resents his father for blaming him for the mistakes he made, never correcting or saving him from not actually making the same mistakes that he did.
Dad left us. Mom was never home. Television raised us. No one was there to check out homework. Dad never called. Never. Not even to give us advice. Or put money into our bank account. That would have been nice.
The reference to Earthbound here not only pointing out how Alex compares his life to a video game, trapped in his nostalgia, almost wishing that his father acted like Ness's, but also is contradictory to the scene we looked at prior, Alex rejecting any attempt from his father to connect. This is a matter of it being from Alex's perspective. A crucial aspect of looking at the game through its postmodern writing is understanding how this perspective and the narrative of my father's mistakes and his refusal to correct me will lead me to make the same ones affects everything. This is one of the many meta-narratives Alex constructs to avoid blame for his actions, and we see how this one plays out as early as the beginning of the game.
I've had 7 girlfriends throughout college and high school. None of them lasted long, and I never minded when things were over.
7 women in the span of 9 years reflects a terrifying realization that Alex struggles to contend with.
Oh no, I've become my mother.
Sometimes adults realize that they made mistakes, and sometimes their mistakes cost a lot of money and require a lot of food and educations. And some adults, like your mother, are better at providing for those mistakes than fathers. Look, you're lucky that your mom is smart. Smarter than I am. Anyway, sometimes the realization of those mistakes leads you to following other mistakes halfway across the country in hope of finding some dream. A youthful dream with nice legs. Only those legs aren't as smart as your mom's, but man...
My husband is so handsome, even in age. I bet he's off with some young leggy thing named Candy. Ugh, they're always named Candy.
So you're looking for the Manson's house, huh? Why? Did she say you need a key too? My wife says I need to get rid of the key if I ever want to see my daughter again. But I'd rather die than let someone else see my beautiful leggy Candy.
The implication here is obvious that Alex believes that his father left and went to go be with Rory's late-night street-crawling mother. Alex's dad in one call seems to be talking to a small child.
Hey, Alex, it's your... No, I already said there was no time for that. Okay, look, kiddo, I gotta go. Say hi to your sister for me.
So if the game takes place in 2016 and Alex is 25, that means he was born in 1991. Rory, however, is 23, 2 years younger than Alex, so it's unlikely that Rory is Alex's half-brother. Though it is possible that Anthony is Rory's stepfather. However, this all seems to be similar to the situation with Claudio and Chandra, a desperate attempt to insert himself into the story of his friends to give them more meaning, to make it feel more like fate.
Look! Do us all a favor, and don't try to find that record. Just let it go.
But don't you think that this is all connected? Sammy vanishing, me meeting you, Rory, the entity appearing in my house!
You're talking like there's some cosmic plan here.
It's all so weird.
What exactly do you think is going on here?
Sammy disappearing, me meeting you, then Rory, Chandra, and Claudio, we're all linked.
Alex, however, does have a sister that seemingly fades in and out of existence.
Hey, ain't you that Eggleston kid that lives up on top of the hill? Tell your sister I said hey. Has your sister been around lately? That girl used to be the talk of the town. These days, seems like everyone has forgotten she even existed. Wish I was an only child like you, Alex. Then I could have all the cool toys you got growing up. Having to split your parents' hard-earned money with other kids sucks. Man, I'm so lonely these days. Seems like the entire world is going to hell. All this talk about the Y2K virus is scaring the crap out of me. Times like this, it's important to think about your family, you know? I wish I had one. I'm all alone in the world, just like you. No mom, no dad. All you've got is that stuffed panda you carry around.
You know, my sister went here.
Yeah? What's her name?
Allison. She lived on campus in the all-girls dorm.
There is no all-girls dorm here. There are obviously all-girls rooms, but...
You sure? I don't know, I can't remember. That's all from so long ago.
Given my video on Michael, I'd say that she's actually older, and that she moved out while Alex was young, and that's why it was from so long ago, like everyone else in the narrative. So why 1999? If I had to make a guess, I would say that this year is when everyone started leaving Alex's life.
People can be so mean, don't you think, Alex? Yeah, I feel the same way. I've come to realize something. Something pretty screwed up. You are I. We're the same. Like, literally the same. You're like a concept. Like a stuffed panda. The stuffed panda isn't just a stuffed panda, but the concept, that's where the importance is. A stuffed panda can be a friend. It can be a playful monster. It can be a protector. Whatever it needs to be, that's what it is. The concept of a stuffed panda is greater than any actual panda. Same thing with a crow. A crow is ugly. It's not welcome. No one would ever want one in their home, unless they were weird. So somehow, we're both the stuffed panda and the crow. We're not perfect. In fact, we kinda suck. We're absolutely mediocre young men. But have you stopped to look at who tells us how much we suck? A teenage goth girl who slept with someone twice her age. A bratty photographer responsible for one of the skeeziest websites on the net. A robot who would lead infinite amounts of boys to a life of solitude on a distant star just because one might hurt someone one day. No one ever said we'd hurt anyone. That wasn't written in stone. Just like how Dad said you'd never be able to learn to ride a bike. You fell off so many times. You were so bad at it. That's the same thing. People say you'll destroy the world enough times and damn, you'll grow to believe it. We get a bad rap, you and I. That's just because we had a lot growing up. Good mom, lots of money. We lived in a nice town. Things were easy for us. But you know what? That's just on a basic needs level. Life sucked. Dad left us. Mom was never home. Television raised us. No one was there to check out homework. Dad never called. Never. Not even to give us advice. Or put money into our bank account. That would have been nice. But yeah, we had everything else. No one ever judged us for the way we looked. No one was scared of us walking down the street. Maybe our life was on easy mode. I don't know. I've never lived another life, but I guess we're weak. Easy mode was too hard for us. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore, man. So, look. Here is the deal. The world is over. It's done. But there is another world. Far away. I'm going to suggest something radical. Super radical. Go right now and kill Proto-You. You're strong. Stronger than you'll ever be. Go and fight him alone. And from there, maybe then you'll find happiness. Just avoid that robot. She's not a bad girl. She's just not good for you. We bring out the worst in each other, don't we? Yeah, so if you want to be happy, you'll need to kill Proto-You yourself. Then you'll be good to go. Just you, Panda, and Crow. The holy trinity of suburban mediocrity. Good luck, man. Oh, did you figure out the question?
I wanted to let that all play out and see if you noticed anything odd.
A teenage goth girl who slept with someone twice her age.
Who is the dungeon master talking about here? On first blush, you might assume that it's Vela. However, that doesn't make sense. If you listen to Vela's story, it took place 3 years before she left her reality.
It was May 22nd, 1996, when I met the man who would fix this for me. At 3:02 a.m., I walked into a music club in the city. He was on stage, playing to a small but enthusiastic audience. It wasn't before long that we became both romantically and artistically involved. Our relationship was like a whirlwind of physical and emotional affection. Together, we wrote A Distant Voice, and I knew that I still had the hopes of being not only a good artist, but an interesting human being.
And as Alex mentioned before, Vela is assumed to be older than Alex.
Does that girl live in Frankton? I don't think I've ever seen her before.
I don't know. She's ancient anyway. What do you think she is, 26?
Hey now, that's really not that much older than me, dude.
So what is Alex saying here? Essentially, it's a matter of questioning Vela's morality in order to dissuade any of her criticisms of his actions. His thought here is that he can't earnestly consider her questioning of his wrongdoing if inherently she is an immoral person herself, thus warping her narrative to an unrecognizable degree to justify himself.
A bratty photographer responsible for one of the skeeziest websites on the net.
Here he's obviously talking about Michael. However, I want to point out that there's another funny thing happening with Michael. One that essayists point out but fail to recognize. Michael is really into computers. His whole camera thing is mostly an act of flanderization from Alex's perspective.
But now, pick a major, get good at it, stick to it, and maybe you'll get a job. It's 1999 and the economy is terrible compared to my parents' day. Imagine what it'll be like for our kids if we don't get our shit together.
Yeah, it's scary, but you need to face that reality eventually. What are you leaning towards?
Computers, probably. Maybe I'll make computer games. For Christmas 1996, my mother got my dad a computer. It's a really good one, too. He used to do all of his writing on a word processor. The ones with the really tiny screens where you could see 7 or 8 lines max. So anyway, my dad unboxes it and freaks out. He was so excited. And you know, I fell in love with it right away. Whenever my dad left the house, I'd get on the computer and play games, browse the internet. In '98, for Christmas, they got me my own computer. No one else has their own computer. It was amazing. I made a friend online. Together, we founded Onism 1999. Now you want to hear the really funny part? When I went and lived all of my parallel lives, I was him. I was on a computer, talking to me. Now tell me, how the hell can a computer connect to a chat room that is in another reality? Something is screwed up here, guys.
Onism, overall, while edgy, is fairly tame. But think about who's posting the things that are so objectionable on the website. It's Alex, and parallels of Alex. While Michael may have connected them and acts as admin, he's not the one doing this thing.
A robot who would lead infinite amounts of boys to a life of solitude on a distant star, just because one might hurt someone one day.
This is actually the opposite of the function of the Essentia. If you pay attention closely, Essentia's function is to protect the ego of parallel Alex's, to save himself before he destroys everything, not to abandon him. Our Alex assumes that he can stand up to the thing destroying his reality, but as he's failed, he's faced with the reality that all of the parallels that the Essentia abandoned were protected from dealing with what he faced here, the destruction of his reality by his own hands.
Yeah, so if you want to be happy, you'll need to kill Proto-You yourself.
If Michael going Proto made him realize a fault in his approach to his own life, then what's being said here? That for Alex to be happy, he needs to go out into the world and kill himself before he's able to realize his faults? So, who is Alex? Who is this irredeemable character that the internet hates so much?
So, you've come to the end of the universe. That's pretty crazy. I never thought this would actually happen. Most of the time, the hero saves the day. Oh, right. I forgot. You aren't a hero. You're a protagonist.
Well, he's just a guy going through his quarter-life crisis, not sure of what to do with his life, desperately latching onto anything that feels remotely close to meaningful, and attacking anyone that defies this ideal, and justifying it to himself. I feel that that's an interesting and compelling character to explore, even if others don't. And at the end of the day, he seems to be your average, overly online individual. And maybe these chronically online losers don't see how that's an issue, or don't see how their behavior is odd and funny. Or maybe they're just acting above it. Regardless, I need to thank Rion for voicing the alcoholic, Snazzy for voicing the worried old lady, Colby for voicing Mohawk Guy, Cella Stuff for voicing Vela and proofreading the script, Big Show Rules for proofreading the script, and Linguistic Spaceship for proofreading the script.